Today, I am proud to create him Prince of Wales. With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the center ground.
April 17th, Buckingham Palace. Before sunrise, long before the official schedules began to move, the name of King Charles III was already being whispered in corridors where even senior aides rarely walked unannounced. What unfolded in those early hours did not resemble a formal royal decision. It felt abrupt, layered, and deeply personal. Palace insiders told us the atmosphere shifted overnight, as if a quiet order had been issued that no one dared question publicly. The name of Queen Camilla, once central to every ceremonial plan, was suddenly spoken with hesitation, while Catherine, Princess of Wales, appeared in internal briefings in ways that caught even long-serving staff off guard. There was no announcement, no clear explanation, only a subtle but undeniable redirection of royal authority. Palace aides revealed that documents, seating plans, and symbolic gestures began to reflect a shift that many described as irreversible. One senior palace staff member claimed that this wasn't about tradition, it was about control, hinting that something far deeper had been brewing behind closed doors for months. The timing alone raised questions, but the silence surrounding it created even more tension. What made the situation more unsettling was the mention of a final demand. Sources close to royal household operations suggested that Queen Camilla had made one last attempt to secure her standing, something described as personal, strategic, and urgent. Yet, according to a palace aide, that demand never reached negotiation. It was dismissed, quietly but firmly, before it could reshape the narrative. From that moment, everything began to unravel. The public image remained polished, controlled, almost untouched. But behind that carefully maintained surface, palace insiders described a growing fracture, one that involved not just titles, but influence, loyalty, and long-standing alliances. A royal guard reportedly noted that the shift in tone among senior figures was immediate, as if lines had been redrawn overnight. As whispers spread, the involvement of Prince William became impossible to ignore. His presence in key discussions, as described by those close to the palace, suggested that this was not a single decision, but part of a larger alignment. Some insiders even hinted that Catherine's rising position was not accidental, but carefully supported by figures who had been waiting for the right moment to act. The sense of urgency was unmistakable. Staff members described last-minute changes to engagements, reassignments of responsibilities, and a noticeable shift in who held influence within the palace structure. One palace nanny, who had observed the family dynamics for years, quietly remarked that this felt different, like something had finally reached its breaking point. At the center of it all was a silent confrontation, not one witnessed publicly, but strongly felt by those around it. The refusal of that final demand seemed to mark a line that could not be crossed again. Charles, Camilla, and the silent divide. What makes this moment particularly striking is how carefully it was executed. King Charles III did not make a spectacle of the shift. Instead, it unfolded through controlled gestures, subtle changes that carried enormous weight. Palace insiders described it as a silent removal, where authority was not loudly taken, but gradually reassigned until the outcome became undeniable. For Queen Camilla, the implications were immediate. While no official statement suggested a loss of status, the internal adjustments painted a different picture. Invitations, roles, and symbolic responsibilities began to reflect a reduced presence. One palace staff member noted that it wasn't about what was said, it was about what stopped happening. At the same time, Catherine, Princess of Wales, appeared to step into a position that carried both visibility and authority. According to sources, her involvement in high-level discussions increased noticeably, with aides describing her role as central rather than supportive. This shift, while never formally declared, was felt across every level of palace operations. What remains unclear is the exact nature of the rejected demand. Some insiders suggest it involved long-term influence, others hint at a more personal request tied to legacy and control. But what is consistent across all accounts is that its rejection marked a turning point, one that could not be reversed. The divide between Charles and Camilla, once carefully managed, now appeared more visible to those within the palace. A royal aide reportedly described the atmosphere as controlled but distant, suggesting that while outward appearances remained intact, the internal dynamic had shifted significantly. Catherine's rise and William's quiet strategy. As the situation unfolded, attention increasingly turned toward Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Their positions within the royal structure seemed to strengthen in parallel with the changes affecting Camilla. According to palace insiders, William's influence behind the scenes had been growing steadily, with this moment serving as a culmination rather than a sudden shift. Catherine's role, in particular, became a focal point. Described by staff as composed and deliberate, she appeared to navigate the situation without public acknowledgement, yet with undeniable presence. One palace aide noted that she didn't need to announce anything. The shift spoke for itself. What makes this development more complex is the suggestion that alliances within the palace had been quietly evolving. Some insiders believe that this was not just about individual relationships, but about a broader realignment of power, one that positioned William and Catherine at the center of the future structure. Meanwhile, the absence of direct confrontation in public only added to the tension. Everything remained controlled, measured, and carefully presented, yet those closest to the situation described an undercurrent of conflict that could not be ignored. As the palace adjusted to this new reality, one question continued to surface among insiders. If the final demand was rejected so decisively, what had led to that moment, and what consequences were still to come? April 18th, Windsor Castle, late evening, when most official duties had already concluded, the atmosphere inside the private quarters shifted once again. The name of Queen Camilla surfaced in internal discussions not as a central figure, but as a complication that needed to be managed. Palace insiders revealed that what followed the rejection of her final demand was not immediate fallout. It was something quieter, far more calculated. The adjustments made earlier were only the beginning of a deeper restructuring that few outside the inner circle could fully understand. A palace aide disclosed that certain privileges, once considered permanent, were being reconsidered under direct guidance from King Charles III. It wasn't framed as punishment, but the implications were unmistakable. Invitations to key private briefings became limited, ceremonial roles were subtly reassigned, and influence that once flowed naturally began to face quiet resistance. One senior staff member described it as a gradual narrowing of space, where Camilla's presence was no longer essential to the decisions shaping the monarchy's direction. What made this phase more intense was the reaction behind closed doors. Sources close to the palace claimed that Camilla did not remain silent. There were attempts, measured, strategic, to reassert her position, to remind those in power of her long-standing role and the alliances she had built over years. Yet, according to a palace insider, those efforts were met with controlled distance rather than confrontation. It was as if the decision had already been sealed, they said, suggesting that no argument, no negotiation could alter the path that had been chosen. At the same time, the presence of Catherine, Princess of Wales, continued to expand in ways that even seasoned observers found striking. She appeared in planning sessions once reserved for a much smaller circle, her input noted, her role increasingly defined not just by visibility, but by authority. A palace staff member remarked that the shift wasn't announced, it was demonstrated, pointing to how naturally her position seemed to take shape within the evolving structure. The tension between public image and private reality grew sharper. Official appearances remained composed, almost untouched by the undercurrents of change. But those within the palace described a different scene, one where alliances were being tested, loyalties quietly reassessed, and long-standing dynamics rewritten without a single public declaration. Camilla, Charles, and the quiet unraveling. As the days progressed, the distance between King Charles III and Queen Camilla became more pronounced, not through visible conflict, but through absence. Palace insiders noted fewer shared engagements, fewer moments where their roles appeared aligned. One royal guard described it as a separation in function, not in title, hinting that while official positions remained unchanged, the reality behind them had shifted significantly. The rejection of Camilla's final demand now seemed to carry deeper consequences than initially understood. According to a source close to royal household operations, that demand may have been tied to long-term influence, something that extended beyond immediate roles into the shaping of future decisions. Its refusal, therefore, wasn't just a denial, it was a boundary, clearly defined and firmly held. Attempts to regain footing reportedly continued, but each effort met the same response, controlled acknowledgement without concession. A palace aide explained that nothing escalated, but nothing moved either, creating a sense of stillness that, in itself, became a form of resolution. What unsettled many within the palace was how seamlessly this transition was being absorbed into daily operations. There were no disruptions, no visible fractures, yet the structure itself felt altered. Staff members spoke of an unspoken understanding. that the balance of influence had shifted and that this new arrangement was not temporary. William, Catherine, and the new center of power. At the heart of this transformation stood Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, their roles now more interconnected with the monarchy's direction than ever before. Palace insiders suggested that William's involvement in key decisions had been steadily increasing, with this moment serving as a defining point where his influence became unmistakable. Catherine's position, meanwhile, appeared to evolve with quiet precision. She was described by those close to the palace as composed, observant, and increasingly central to discussions that shaped both public strategy and private priorities. One palace nanny noted that she wasn't stepping forward loudly, but everyone could see where she stood. The dynamic between William and Catherine was also highlighted as a stabilizing force during this period of change. Their alignment, as described by insiders, created a sense of direction that contrasted with the uncertainty surrounding others. It wasn't presented as a takeover, but as a natural consolidation of influence, one that had been building beneath the surface for some time. As this new center of power took form, the broader implications began to emerge. The monarchy, while outwardly unchanged, now operated with a different internal rhythm. Decisions flowed through new channels, priorities were subtly redefined, and the figures at the core of it all reflected a shift toward the future rather than the past. Yet even as this transition settled into place, one detail continued to linger among those closest to the situation: the memory of that final demand and the moment it was refused. Because in that quiet refusal, something more than a request had been denied. It marked the point where influence changed hands and where the balance that once defined the palace was quietly, but permanently, rewritten.